On, and we're going to look at our ambient temperature. So right now we're roughly about 65 inside the car and about 65.9 outside here. So Bill has his glasses. Let me get my glasses since I'll be near it as well. And as Doreen is adjusting that in, there we go. Nice job. And we're going to use the sealant detector first. So the sealant detector, and Bill has it out. It's up on the car. And that's this little thing here. So let me explain this thing first. So there's a little ball in here that's probably oh, you got it, right? You had it right there. Beautiful. Little ball's at the bottom. We're going to move this little rubber thing here, okay? And Bill has the end that he's going to put on. There is, we'll hang it up for now.
Cool.
There are little pellets in here that you have to change when they get contaminated. And that's these here. And we put water in the syringe, and you have to wet it, shake it out, stick it on the end of the hose that goes on that coupler. Now right now we're using the 134 coupler. Next week we'll do the 1234 YF. So go ahead, Bill.
All right, so we're going to hook this onto the high side.
So hooked on to the high side.
And then we can watch that ball.
Okay, now the ball, can you see that ball? Not my bald head, the ball on here. There it goes, beautiful, beautiful. So you see the ball bouncing? We're going to leave that there, and for the sake of time, we're going to say, wait about 3 minutes or so, because what this is doing is if that ball drops and starts to go down from that range in a 3 to 5 minute range, if it goes down to here, that's going to tell us we got sealant in there. What's going to be our next step, Bill?
We're going to identify the system.
No, but if we have the sealant in
there. Yeah, if there's sealant in there, you need to put the
recovery guard.
Yeah, we use our separate machine.
So where do you get, now will you leave it on the other machine? I'm working with Aaron. Aaron has made some quick connects to put on any machine, which would be a lot better than the other setup that I have. But we use that all the time. We pull the other machine out. We contact the customer and say, look, you got sealant in there. We take a little video of this thing here and a picture before and after. Explain to them. Keep that little pellet piece here, or whatever they call this thing, the sealant detector piece, and show them that it's clogged. Now, once you document that, it's going to cost them whatever you feel is a reasonable price, X amount of dollars, because this is definitely a moneymaker, okay? And it saves your damn equipment, and it's going to save problems with their vehicle. So we do that, and in the sake of time, we're just going to skip waiting 3 minutes. So we're going to take that off. Remember, that's on the high side. And always wear your glasses when you're working on this. So I'll just take that back, Bill.
Cool.
Now the next thing you're going to do
I'm going to grab the identifier.
Use the identifier. So now we're looking for refrigerant purity.
Okay, so this is going to actually hook on the low side. Hold that for a sec.
So here's what we're using, and Bill has this little thing he's going to put on the low side.
And we just got to get the machine set up here.
Yep.
So it's just warming up. It takes just a minute.
So as it warms up, just hold that there while I throw this away. So put this away. And when that's warming up, it doesn't take long, but it's something that you should have. How many of you guys out there actually do this process? Now again, we're creatures of habit. If you weren't taught the right way, you sometimes continue to do the wrong way.
All right, so it comes up, we're going to hit start, and that's going to start the calibration. We're not hooked up to the car yet.
And notice we could select 134A or 1234 YF.
So we're going to pick 134A on this one. and it's going to go through and
Get the start button. And by the way, there's helpful stuff. You can print stuff out. We've already set it up. So now it's calibrating to make sure that there's nothing in the hose. The hose is disconnected. And then when Bill puts this on, we're going to test for the refrigerant, see what we got in it.
you got that.
I got this.
Cool.
So it's almost done calibrating. All right, and basically tells you what to do. Put the coupler on, screw the piece down,
All right, all
and
set.
now we're going to hit test. So now it says, trying to get straight for you there.
And in the meantime, we had a quick question. Will the vacuum pump remove water from the desiccant? I'm guess talking about the...
Okay, so water boils at 212, but in a vacuum, water could boil at 50 degrees or lower. So as you go down to 29 on your machine, it does boil out some of the moisture. Okay, is it going to boil all of it out? If it's contaminated, you know, real bad, you're going to have to change it.
And then one more question, the thermometer, who makes that tool? I'm guessing this thermometer here.
UView. So CPS sells that. And now, I don't know if Chuck is on. Chuck, you have a electronic one. I don't know the name of it, and I don't have one to show, but there is an electronic version that's pretty cool. Okay, results?
Yep, so we'll hit results on this, and then it comes up.
Doreen, you may have to come in close on that.
But it gives you a full report, any refrigerant. This one happens to be 100% 134a, and then obviously 0% everything else.
Right there, you got it.
Perfect.
100%, look at that. So there's no hydrocarbons, there's nothing else in it, and if we hit print,
Give it a print. I want to print that
prints
for
it
the
out,
customer.
and we're big on the print. We're only going to print one out for a customer if it's good. If it's bad, we're going to print two out. One for them, one for us, and it's going to go in their service record. Okay? That way you don't have a problem, and that's what I'd highly recommend, you know, you do. So now we just got two things out of the way to save our equipment and make sure we're dealing with the right stuff. And the one thing was the sealant, the refrigerant. Now what are we going to do next, Bill?
We're going to hook up our machine.
Okay, so we're going to hook the machine up.
And let's
And
get
you got
back
the
here.
lines on that side?
Yep.
Any questions while we're waiting? Okay.
Yeah, I think somebody
So
asked.
we're going to come here to the gauges as Bill's hooking up. First of all, your machine should always be left in a vacuum. He just hooked the high side up. There's the low side still in a vacuum when he puts it down. Good shot. And now if you look, we got about 60 something and 60 something. Oh, and we're 65 degrees. So what did I basically say? If we have the ambient temperature, right? We're about 65, 66. Come back on this machine. Come in. And there we go. So right there, we're roughly about 65 or so. If I can only leave that up like that. Let's see. There we go. So we're right on the money, both gauges. So now what does this tell me? I don't have a clog, Bill, do I?
Right.
Why? Because they're both equal.
Even, yep.
Right? And is the system roughly full?
Yeah. that's a
Most
good-
likely. I mean, again, it's not an exact science, 1 pound, you know, for 1 Fahrenheit, but pretty damn close. So the next step would be, we're going to do this. I mean, this car we know is okay, but let's do the recovery process on this, Bill.
Okay, so we're going to start. We'll hit recover.
Yeah, and you could all do automatic. And by the way,
We're going to take note.
where are we here, Bill? What does that say? Little.
We're at about 4.5. A hair over 4.5.
So right there, if you want to take like a black piece of tape, you know, something like that,
Yeah.
Or write it down.
I usually write it down on a scrap piece of paper or
Now,
something.
because that's important. Let's see how much oil we pull out of this. Remember, 4.5. And here's the other thing to look at. This car is supposed to take how much, Bill?
2.38 pounds.
2.38 pounds. So if we don't come out somewhere in that range, then we know the system's low.
Yeah.
If we come out in the range, then we know the system was good.
Good, yeah.
And there's no harm in removing the refrigerant, putting it down. We're only going to do a 2-minute vacuum on this.
Right.
Just so we get it down to 29.9. Later, we can, do for 45 minutes. Never go under 45 minutes. The newer machines, the J standard, and Peter, what's that new J standard on the latest AC machine for 1234 YF? It's supposed to take less time because the pump has a better capacity. And I know on the CPS new unit, that pump really pumps down way better than this one.
Right.
So if you got a pump that can get you down and boil that moisture out a lot quicker, and again, that's why SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, why they have committees like the Air Conditioning Committee that comes up with the J standards on what you should use, all important.
We had one quick question. Does that tester also check R134a? And I don't know.
Yes, so that tester is, this is a 134A car. Next week you may have meant, does it check 1234YF? Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, Peter, not that we use it for that, I think there's a way and an attachment, you got to buy it, special for R12. Is that correct, Peter? So we'll ask Peter from Neutronics if that is correct or not. And you can see where our gauges are going down. It's telling us don't hit the machine. Don't do the bump. Don't do anything with the machine because that is going to make a difference. Over here is our dye oil where we're at what level, Bill? Because if we were going to put 1 ounce in,
yeah, it's a perfect 10
if we were
ounces.
charging it, we're not going to do it on this car because this car don't need it.
Right.
But if we did, we would basically know where we're at and not put more than 1 ounce of oil dye. Won't the compressor hold a half a pound refrigerant? The compressor?
After evacuation.
No, your compressor really doesn't hold much. It's not like the old days of a compressor that had a big oil sump in them. Where you may hold some is in the bottom of the condenser, some maybe a little bit in the evaporator, the accumulator and receiver jar, especially the accumulator. If you see freeze up, then you know. I mean, here, the accumulator's on that side on the bottom there, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, right behind the box.
And to the touch, yeah, the low side is cold, but it's, 65 degree in here, so I don't think we're gonna have a problem with freeze up. I mean, I haven't seen, if anyone else out there, if you've seen that the compressor's doing that, I haven't come across that. The accumulator, I'd say, #1 place that freezes up.
Right.
The receiver dryers, not as much, but accumulators are a biggie, and sometimes a lot in the condenser. Even be careful. That's why if you're removing, let's say you're opening the system up to remove a line. Remember, you're gonna need duct tape or caps and all that stuff, but I would always make sure that I put it into a vacuum at least for 10 minutes. That way we can boil out some
Moisture.
of that refrigerant and moisture that is going to be held in the oil of that condenser. I mean, that's pretty common.
Yeah.
So now we're down to roughly, and notice how these are pretty much right about the same. They're roughly about 10 pounds each, and we're at 1 pound, what does that say? 1 pound?
1.42. Yeah, 1.42 pounds.
42 now. So we'll stay on that. We're almost to the end of it recovering it. And by the way, this machine, once it recovers all the refrigerant, it will wait a little bit before it goes into a vacuum. So if we would have hit automatic, automatic would have told us, how much vacuum you want, how much refrigerant you want to put in, how much oil you want to put in. We just want to show you step by step because you may not own this type of automatic machine. I mean, again, it takes money to make money. I would say if your equipment is too old and does not perform some of the correct functions, I would invest in a new machine. Now the machine we're going to use, an FX3030, next week, the CPS machine, is a dual machine. But all the dual machines nowadays, you got to really change a tank and do a whole process. We just leave that machine for 1234YF. Now you hear that? It went into this recovery. It thinks it's at the end, and you could hear that pump going on.
Yep,
it's doing a
sucking
gurgling.
into a vacuum.
And it's going to take, unfortunately, 8 minutes and 47 seconds, whether we like it or not, before it'll even allow us to do the next step. So now if you have any questions, there's a damn good time to ask, because we definitely would like to answer them. We could talk about some other things, these kits here. So you see this seal kit? This has the Honda caps in there, has the big caps in there, has different Schrader valves.
A couple different styles of Schraders.
Yeah, so this pack, I don't even know where we got it from.
I think usually Napa will send
I think it was
advanced, maybe.
I think it's like Napa or Dorman may sell them, not sure. I believe so. And if Lester's on, maybe Lester can tell us. And always on these Schraders, we need to put a little oil around them. I don't know if you can get in on that, Dorian, can you? Yeah, look at that. Excellent. So that O-ring right there, you want to oil up a little bit. All right, so show them the little thermometer, the other type of black light. I want to see if I could find that other thing I was
It's just a little cheap thermometer we use for a quick test in the vent. It's digital, so we turn it on and put it in the vent. This is before we even get it in the bay and use the blue one that we showed you earlier. That's a good test to show the 30-degree delta from the vent to the condenser. And then this is just another style of light. We have a whole bunch of them. This one, pretty sure this one's like hand actuated, so you can pump it up to make it work. It's another light.
And look at this, Bill. So here's this little tool I was talking about. And this is pretty cool, because the nice thing you can do with this is go on and take a Schrader out, unscrew, shut this off. So once you, come on. Once you get this up, you shut it off, you take the Schrader out, get ready to put a new one in, okay? And as you're gonna put it in, you then take this little latch, open it up, push down, it screws in at the bottom, you're done, take it off, and you lost no refrigerant. Low side, high side. So that is a great tool. I believe I got that one from CPS as well, and there's probably a load of other companies that make that. And we got,
Question.
Please show the valve replacement tool that can be used with the system charge. No, that's it. That was system charge, system charge tool. Hold this for a second.
Yep.
Here's what you can use when the system is empty, and there's a couple of different types of these tools, okay? But that one right there,
I just put something back in there.
let's just get that one more time. This right here is the tool kit. And notice high and low side, high, low. Little valve, works great. I don't know how many of you guys are using them out there, but it is a real good tool. The other thing that we like using is this hose right here. We showed you this last week. We take this, it goes to the CO2 tank, and again, all refrigerant must be removed. You should have been in a vacuum. We put 200 pounds of refrigerant in. We look for leaks, maybe get Bernie's little beeper doohickey. And basically, we're going to check to see if there's a leak with the CO2 and the foam. And Bill's bringing that over right now. Now, one thing I will caution you on, if you don't run the system, and you know, hey, everyone makes mistakes. We're going to tell you what really happened here. We had a leak in a car, and the compressor was not, the system was not started up, and guess what? It needed a damn compressor. Now you get a cranky customer because you had to go back to the well the second time. The well is the customer, you know, and sometimes the well don't want to give you any more water, right? And they get all bent out of shape. So if you use that and there's leak detector, this is the latest, greatest ATS with the small tip, okay? So it can get into tighter spots and basically has 3 sensitivities. So you got a low, a medium, and a high. And basically you press the button and it'll tell you as this is warming up where it's at. Okay, so it's still warming up, and our batteries are not dead.
Somebody
and the foam.
Somebody was looking for the part number for the tool. I just don't know if it's that tool or the Schrader tool.
The Schrader tool, don't know.
Schrader tool? Okay.
Yeah, Schrader tool, wish I knew the number. Maybe someone out there can help us. The foam is great here. You shake it, you spray it. Now they're in little disposable cans.
Right, and the new ones you don't shake. This stuff you do shake.
Yeah, the new ones you don't shake. You've got the big cans that we're still on.
Yep.
We have little ones too. So right here, we can see that one up there. That's for very low. And if you put it on high sensitivity, you can change it. Okay. Oh, it doesn't like my bad breath. I failed the bad breath test. So this is what we use for leak detection, that and the foam. Again, number one area, I would definitely get the Schrader valve tool. I don't know if they make it for 1234YF, I'm sure. Maybe I'll contact Aaron Becker later as I'm uploading the video and ask if he has something like that. Or maybe Dorman Products, Lester, if you're on, and maybe you guys sell that. I don't know.
Just one more question.
Another question?
Yep. How long typically would you would you run the system once you have filled it with CO2 to verify the operation?
Okay, so that's a good question. How long would you run the system with CO2? I've run one for over a half hour without a problem. I would just run it as long as you need to see, you know, if it's something on the high side that you didn't pick a leak up, now it's under pressure. You could see the high side better where the low side has more pressure with the system off, right? Because you've seen we had 60 pounds before.
Right.
So as long as you want to run it. Now a lot of people are worried about, well, it won't lubricate. Well, my buddy Aaron Becker made me a special piece that we put in line to see what refrigerant, how much oil came through. It's a glass piece that they make for something or another, but he made me a piece. So we checked it out to see how much oil was flowing with regular refrigerant. Close to none. In fact, I don't think I've seen any. Then we did it with CO2. So you're not going to kill the compressor. You know, there's people out there who go, oh, you're going to kill it. Well, I've ran it, and I know Bernie, I had Bernie do the same thing. He ran it for hours and had no problem. You don't need to run it for hours. I would just run it 5 minutes maybe to see if the compressor works. Can it compress? Do we see something on the gauge compressor? Yeah. And remember, do not mix the CO2 in your air conditioning machine. When we take the CO2 out, we're going to take this on the high side, we're going to carefully depress the Schrader, and this is going to go to a rag. Why? If I see a hell of a lot of oil coming out, I'm going to have to back off. Let the pressure out slowly. Okay, and CO2 is CO2 in the atmosphere, correct? So we shouldn't have a problem. Another question?
Yeah, a couple more. This is a question that he had from last week. It has to deal with the overflow tank that the cap actually screws onto. There is no pressure relief on the cap. What controls the cooling system pressure? So this is talking about the heating from last week. We were talking about the expansion tanks. And
Okay,
he's
so the
asking,
expansion tank doesn't have a pressure cap on it, right?
he's asking the overflow tank that the cap actually screws onto.
Explorers, like on the Ford Explorers, you know how it has, but that is a pressure cap.
There's no pressure relief. If it's talking about a plastic cap, well, either or. If it's the expansion tank, then the cap should still.
Yeah, that's where the pressure, if it's nothing on the radiator with a pressure cap, then the screw cap, as you unturn it, okay, unscrew it, I should say, unturn it. Unscrew it, you will release some pressure. Again, care must be taken with hot refrigerant, so it would be in that cap. Another question we have?
Yep. This one sounds like a comment. Be careful when using electronic leak detector if in shop if someone is spraying brake clean, carb cleaner, or other aerosols that can set off the electronic detector.
So you're talking about the regular air conditioned leak detector?
I'm guessing, yeah.
Okay, so a 2791, I think, type unit. Yeah, so those leak detectors, I'm not a big fan of. I just never had luck over the years with any of those beep beep things. If a fan goes on, it seems to make it go. That's why we use CO2. I mean, you know, we're forced to use the 2913, I believe is the number, and I'll just double check on that next week. And right there, we pulled out how much? Just
2.30 pounds. So our spec, I believe, was 2.38. So we were.
Oh, so basically,
close,
for government work, we can say it had pretty much a full charge.
Right.
You're not going to worry an itsy bit off because there may be some frozen still in the oil, even though we went through that. Okay. So where was I on that question? I'm sorry.
That was the brake clean or carb cleaner.
Oh, so brake clean. I'm not a big fan of that. You know, but you do need, for liability purposes, you have to put, and we'll do this next week. It'll be mostly not many slides next week. It'll be basically doing a 1234 YF vehicle. And what you have to do is change the airflow to the floor ducts, put your leak detector in there, and make sure that there's not a problem. Because if there is, there's a liability issue. So we'll talk about that. We do it with CO2, and we definitely do it with the refrigerant in there. So here, we're pretty good. And the next question was?
How much are you charging the system with CO2 and do larger systems or smaller volume systems
Okay, we put just 200 pounds of CO2 in no matter what. So we have our big pressure tank, which is about 3.5 pounds. We have a regulator that goes to 200. Bernie's, I think, only goes to 150.
Right, yep.
He now has the same regulator set that we have. I think it's Smith or whoever, one of the big welding companies for CO2. And we put the full 200 in there, and you shut it off. You can check for leaks with the leak detector. You can also check on a gauge.
Right.
Is it leaking down?
Yep.
Providing your hose is not leaking at any of the couplers, because then it kind of throws it off.
Check that first.
Any other questions?
You just answered it for the most part. How much CO2 PSI do you install before you run it?
200. Because if you don't get up to 200, your low pressure switch is not going to allow you to run.
Right.
Okay, so here, Bill, what's the next step?
So now we would put it into a vacuum.
Yep, and we're only going to do 2 minutes.
Okay.
We can program this in, so let Doreen get on it.
Okay. So this is saying 10 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to lie. We're going to put 0, 2.
We're going to make it 2, and then just hit start.
Yep.
And it'll start the leak test. So the machine will do a leak test for you as well to see if you lose the vacuum. We're going to do no on that.
We're going to do no. Now, in other words, as this is counting down, the leak check, if you put in, and I think it's 5 minutes, isn't it?
5 or 10. It's, yeah, I think it's 10, right?
10? So 10 minutes you would have to stand there. We don't want to bore you for 10 minutes. It's, you know, we had you on here long enough, obviously. But basically, it would see if it drops. But there's a big difference between vacuum and pressure. So a lot of people go, well, pass the vacuum test.
Yeah.
Well, vacuum, does, in my opinion, is not going to be like 250, 300 plus pounds of pressure.
Right.
That if I have a small hole, it's going to give me a leak and I'm going to have a problem. And there's nothing worse than a customer coming back, you know, a hot day and they're all dressed up, maybe going somewhere to work. Well, when we used to work in this country, going to work sooner or later, okay? We're lucky we get to come to work because what type of
Essential employees.
essential? That's right.
Luckily.
We're essential people here. It's like special ed for me. I'm essential. I finally got some sort of special designation, so we could come to work. But a lot of people obviously cannot and have to stay home, right? But when they can come out and people are dressed up, or even if they're not, and they're warm and really ticked in their car, you take someone's radio away, you take someone's heating and air conditioning away, they're pissed. So if you want to fix emission control problems on vehicles, take away the air conditioning and heating and turn the radio off, the sound system, and boy, people will come fix those cars but quick, right? That'll be good for us with business.
Yeah, that would work. Someone came up with that, it looks like the Master Cool 81490 is the
cool.
R134a valve core remover.
Good, thank you for that. So
that was
Master
Bruce.
Cool is one of the companies, I'm sure. And, you know, that may have been a Master Cool one. I know I had a couple of them. Okay, so our machine, we managed to yak for 2 minutes, and that is complete. Remember, it would go into 10 minutes. Mandatory, it says vacuum is good. We want to be down to 29.9. If your machine, and by the way, never ever put your machine away with pressure in the gauges. Recover and leave it in a vacuum. Why? If I come back to use the machine later and I see it's at 0, what did you just tell me about the integrity of my hoses and connections?
You have a leak somewhere.
I got a leak somewhere. So we don't want that. Always leave your machine in a vacuum. When you put it away, do the right thing. Let's plug in the right amount. We're not going to add oil, but you would put oil injection here, and I wouldn't put more than an ounce of oil dye. We use the FJC oil dye. It's a POE oil type setup that it won't hurt it no matter what system you put it in, okay? You may like something else. We've had good luck with FJC stuff. They came here years ago and we did a little test tube thing, and I've used it ever since. Works great.
Now we're going to hit charge.
Yep, and you plugged in the amount.
We're going to do that. So this has a database in it. It'll pull up the year, make, and model. We know the specs, so we'll just say no on that. And we're going to charge it to 0.238, and then we're going to charge on the low side.
And before you do that, so this machine, as well as many others, you can change the side. You see mode, it says high side. You can change the mode, you can change the units. It may not be in pounds, it may be in ounces, kilograms, right? They have like 3 different things. We're happy with this. We know it's 238, and you can do high and low side. You're going to switch that, Bill?
Yep, we're going to put that on the low side.
We're going to put that on the low side. Now you may go, why on the low side? Well, here's why on the low side. If the full charge doesn't go in, we could start the vehicle up and suck the rest in, all from the low side only being open. Remember, there's no valves to turn here to shut something off. Some people like charging from both sides. It's up to you. I just like being safe, because if we slug a compressor by putting liquid in there, we're screwed. So I would say low side is the way to go. And let's do that, Bill, and then we'll answer the question as that's charging. So you can hear, now this is air purging. We went over this last week. If your machine does not have automatic air purge where you hear this psh, 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 like you just heard, you hear that? And now we're going into the charge mode. So we can look back at that, and then we'll look at that question.
All right, so is a Micron gauge a good tool to see if a leak is present?
A Micron gauge. I'm not familiar with that for this. I don't know. So Doreen, let's keep an eye on that. Sorry. If anyone out there, a Micron gauge, I'm not familiar with that. Has anyone used one?
There's one more question as well. Does the machine already compensate for the vacuum in the hoses?
This machine compensates. There's no special for anything in the hoses. Remember, some of your machines do not. Okay? So if you're using some of the Snap-on machines, there's a few of them, especially if there's a gauge set that comes off, each hose is at least 2 ounces. Okay? So it says now, press start to equalize the hoses.
Let that start going, and then there was a comment as well.
Okay.
The Micron gauges are used in the commercial HVAC industry.
Oh, okay, thank you. Don't know that. Like I said, I wish I knew everything. I got the G, a half an O, never getting the other half an O and D, so just learned something. Commercial, cool. Thank you for the answer, whoever did that. And what else we got there?
Micron gauge is used in the commercial arena to evaluate the depth of the vacuum, and then this one is we use Micron gauges to be sure we have removed all moisture in school bus systems.
Oh, okay.
It's good to know.
Very cool. How much are those Micron gauges? And where can you get them? Because I'm not familiar with them, at least in the automotive end. And maybe they'll answer that back in a second. And it says also for automatic. Oh, so Chuck Abbott. Okay, so Chuck, we have to talk later. You got to let me know about these Micron gauges. I have no clue.
I think Robinair used to sell, Honda used to recommend.
Ah, so it's a good idea to check. I mean, moisture is the killer of the system, so that's really good. So right now it says disconnect the high hose and then start it up. So now anything left in it is going to be sucked in on this particular setup. And again, safety glasses must be worn. I can start.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so it says to start AC on max, and then hit start to continue. And now it's just equalizing the
Freezing in there.
Cool. Now it's prompting
So now you
us.
can disconnect the low side hose. And again, you see where our pressure's at? About 35. That's going to be a normal size reading. Now, we're going to shut it off just so we know it's cold. I'm not sure how cold it's getting down to. .54 and dropping. And obviously we got the windows open. I'm just going to shut it off in the sake of time.
And the machine's just finishing
Now,
up
one
the
last
clearing.
thing we want to do. The machine is
Just clearing out.
is clearing
So-
the hoses, but let's look at that die with the black light. Again, this is the U-View CPS light. And here, Bill, what do you just put that light on, hold it on there. Watch the color. Now you see the green? That is the dye. And take the light away, Bill. See the difference? Put the light on. You can see that there's dye there. Now, of course, there's dye in the system. So that is another step. Now, the final thing you want to do is put the caps back on. And of course, you would run the performance test on this, making sure, these are the caps, right?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say I moved one of them.
You would want to make sure that this vehicle got down cold enough and it wasn't a problem. And doing the procedure the right way, it really is going to save you in the long run. Because if you can't get down to the right temperature, if you got a clog, put that thing in a vacuum.
Yep.
You know, we're going to be all good. The chances are small if you checked for a leak. Again, if someone comes in and they're low on refrigerant, you better check for a leak.
Yeah. There's a
Because
reason.
the worst thing is these people coming back and you check for dye and you don't see any, then you're going to have to recover the whole thing anyway. So if they come in and they're real low, I would recommend you go right there, hey, I'm going to do a leak test. And we charge for the leak test. We don't do the leak test for free because obviously it takes extra time.
Right.
And time is money. That's how we get paid. Well, hopefully you got something out of this today.